Welcome to Get In, the software-defined vehicle podcast from BlackBerry. With this series, we're diving into what the future of transportation just might look like. So don't just stand there, get in. Hi, and once again, welcome to CES 2024. I'm Steve Kopsky, Senior Editorial Director for BlackBerry, and we are here in the Deloitte suite, which is it's upstairs. This is pretty Tony for us. We're excited to be here, and I'm excited to be talking to one of their top executives in the automotive sector. And Walid, would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks a lot. My name is Walid Negm. I'm Managing Director at Deloitte and the CTO for our product engineering practice here in North America.
Is this a typical show for you? Do you come to CES every year? Or?
Yeah. This is the place to be to kind of get a feel for how the technology sector is evolving and changing leaps and bounds. So yeah, we make it a point to be here.
It's interesting how it has kind of become relatively recently, and more so every year, an automotive show.
Yeah,
this has become like the big auto show for the world in a way.
Yeah, and I show up for the automotive track for sure. There's a lot of technology that grows up here, year after year in the consumer electronics space, but the automotive does have a special place at CES.
Deloitte is leaning into the software-defined vehicle trend. How do you describe that? How does that unfold in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, certainly it's still about transportation and mobility. Right? I mean, the vehicle takes you from point A to point B, but it's becoming more of an experience. You get into the car. There's the in-cabin experience. It's vastly different than it was, just a couple of years ago. My kids and in general, the generation that is more digitally native appreciates a digital cockpit, right? They're not going to go back to an analog experience, whether it's listening to music or connectivity or the apps. I think there's a whole different expectation of that device, and it's partly just the natural progression of things, and just partly because what we're expecting at home, we're expecting in the vehicle as well. So I think software is just in a part of the vehicle, and how it's going to become more, more versatile, and more safe and more friendly for the driver as well as the passenger, and of course for the city itself, right? As vehicles talk to infrastructure, to traffic lights and whatnot.
Tell me how Deloitte fits into that ecosystem.
Yeah, how does Deloitte fit? I mean, Deloitte's an interesting company. It's one of the largest consulting companies in the world by revenue. I think it's 175 years old. It's been around quite some time. Seen quite
about as old as the automotive industry.
Yeah, about as old as the automotive industry, which is like nowhere near to what it was today. What it was, right? It's a very different kind of animal right now. Deloitte comes at things from a multidisciplinary perspective. So you asked Deloitte, what do you think about electrification, for example? We're not just going to talk about the digital experience of the car. We're not just going to talk about the drivetrain and the engineering of the vehicle. We're able to talk about regulatory regimes in different geographies. We're able to talk about tax credits, right? We're able to talk about financing and how vehicles get financed. Right, so we approach problems in a very multidisciplinary way, and then able to walk down a journey with an OEM or a tier 1 or a tier 2 or supplier. That here's how this is going to unfold. And if your problem is in new product development, we can help out. If your challenge is in your supply chain management, and how parts are need to be sourced in a different way, here's how we think of the supply chain challenges and the transformation there. So it's a very different view of a problem, very holistic view of the problem or the challenge. Really acknowledging the digital lifestyle changes, or what's the expectation when you as a passenger or a driver, and that includes how you buy a car, right? Which hasn't changed a lot. In the last innovation is leasing, but there are other ways to finance a vehicle. So just the digital lifestyle is means a new way of servicing the vehicle, purchasing the vehicle, software being uploaded or downloaded into the vehicle. I think more of the OEMs have been around for a while. They have a lot of cost challenges. Right? It takes a lot of money to make these transitions, these movements from combustion engines to electrification, now software-defined vehicles. So That's a significant challenge. And then just the ecosystem is changing. When you think about how do you make a car, and we had a nice panel the other day, I think it was from steel to software, something like that. I mean, you need a different talent pool. And it's not just mechanics and electricals. There is a ton of hardware for sure. It's still a physical product, but there's a lot of software engineering as well. And so there's a talent challenge as well.
That is something that BlackBerry not only feels that as an automotive company that is challenged to hire enough engineers, but also they get it from all of our customers. So it's a common problem that we are trying to solve, and it's exciting that Deloitte is leaning into that as well, and trying to find ways to, how do we retool the workforce for this, and how do we also enable the automakers to get a leg up. And I think that this is one of the areas that QNX is trying to establish that trusted foundation and help OEMs balance the build versus buy. Perhaps in the software area, you can rely on a trusted third party to provide some of those building blocks. How do you see that challenge unfolding?
I mean, the car needs an operating system. It's obvious now, right? The car needs an operating system. That operating system has to be able to take care of multiple different subsystems in the vehicle, whether it's infotainment, autonomous driving, body control, powertrain. So you need an operating system. And I think that's how I see QNX as an operating system for the vehicle, a reliable operating system for the vehicle. It's been around, and it's a safety certified operating system, ASIL D. I also see it as a high performance operating system, right? I mean, these infotainment systems have to be extremely responsive. Other functions that are safety critical, have to depend on a real time operating system, at microsecond levels. Right? Yeah. So I see this as a reliable, stable operating system, stood the test of time, and I also see it as a developer experience as well. Right? The more SDKs and the more facilities you provide the developer, the more innovation and value you can bring to the driving experience as well as the passenger, the in-cabin experience.
How can we work together, do you think, to solve these problems globally and bring the industry up to the level that it needs to be? Especially, I think that some of the old guard companies, they're a little bit challenged by some of the more developing areas that are coming to market very quickly. They're challenging the performance of the vehicles that they're producing. They're challenging the cost point for the vehicles they're producing and how quickly they can bring to market. Can Deloitte and BlackBerry work together to solve some of these things?
Yeah, I mean, so off the bat, I think, issue management, operational issues in the field are important to get ahead of. So I think that's just a big domain of knowledge, of engineering that should be sorted out. As these vehicles become more or less static and more dynamic, over-the-air updates are being downloaded. We just have to make sure that we have the right, guardrails, the quality flanking measures, as they say. So I think that's an interesting area to continue to work on. Unfortunately, we've seen some issues, around, failure modes that, should have been averted earlier on.
Yeah.
So that's one topic. I think, so some of these technologies are familiar to, the cloud engineering, talent pool, but there's a lot of nuances in real-time operating systems, performance characteristics, safety levels. So I think, training and upskilling in this area to make it more accessible for the next generation or this generation is probably another area of interest for me personally. And just keep growing and keep going together. Yeah.
It's exciting to hear some of these developments and the things that you're focusing on. I think there's a lot of opportunity for problem solvers right now. Yeah. There's a lot of problems to solve. There's a lot of hiccups. Some of the things that are on the horizon that maybe you have some insight on that are coming into the car, generative AI, you mentioned the cloud. Any other influences that you think we'll be talking about at CES 2025?
I definitely think virtualization is pretty. We've seen some pretty interesting tech this year around taking software that traditionally had run at the edge and was highly configured for a device, now being able to run in the cloud natively. on ARM instruction sets, and how that becomes high fidelity replica of what's in the vehicle. I think that's going to continue to evolve and improve. So you don't need sample hardware to develop or test. You can actually do a lot of stuff in the cloud, and that's going to continue to evolve. I'm a big fan of Gen AI, as a lot of folks are. I think it's going to clean up the development process. There's a lot of inefficiencies. It's not just about generating code automatically, but generating documentation and test cases. Understanding which test suites are priorities. So I think Gen AI is just going to increase productivity dramatically, cut out a lot of waste, and then leave, like you said, the problem solving to people.
Anything else that you'd like to talk about?
It's been great working with QNX BlackBerry on this demonstrator, this showcase, where we put together how a collaborative workflow and an open toolchain could look like, and the use cases around issue management. It's been a pleasure working with Sridhar. Can I mention his name?
When I cut it out.
Sridhar was great, and the support teams was great. So look forward to working together with clients. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, and I'm going to say goodbye for now. We're over here in front of a demo here in the Deloitte booth, and I have Chris with me. And Chris, tell people your full name and what you do.
Yeah, my name is Chris Ahn. I'm out of Detroit, Michigan. I lead our connected services and electrification practice in the U.S. For the firm.
One of the things that Walid mentioned was the use of cloud to enable developers, so they don't have to have the specialized hardware necessarily. That can all be virtualized now, and this is something that BlackBerry QNX is really doubling down on in their partnership with AWS, is to make sure that it's sort of a democratization of the developer experience, that anybody anywhere can be developing on any hardware. And so it's removing some barriers. Do you see that as having a big impact?
Oh, absolutely. And it's not necessarily it's not just an impact to the software-defined vehicle experience and to be able to deploy options, but just product development life cycles. I mean, as I mentioned before, in a lot of cases, we're talking about 3 to 5 year product development life cycles, because in today's world, hardware and software sit on one product development cycle through a program for many OEMs, right? In tomorrow's world, or where I hope the future goes, is that there's hardware lifecycle refreshes that may still stay on these 3 to 5 year update shifts, but software moves at this pace where it's, you might have 12 to 15 updates on a single version of hardware that maybe backdates back to, version like -2 versions of hardware, right? And a lot of that is going to be enabled through virtualization, so that you can test future state hardware or future state software on older hardware platforms and kind of draw these lines. Very similar to like what the phone industry has been doing for years, the mobile phone industry.
Let me ask you a little bit about your experience creating this using QNX. What was your experience working with the QNX platform to develop this?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I won't take all the credit for this. This is Walid and his team that really was the brainchild behind this. But I mean, what you see here, and this is just, the 3D printed hardware cockpit. And then, this laptop over here basically mimics what a developer would be, and the developer could be 2,000 miles away from the vehicle. This whole setup down to the engineering on the chip probably took us about 2 months, 3 months. So it wasn't, and I think we had a lot of control over the hardware.
That's a short period.
But it's a very short period of time. Like getting this going, as I mentioned before, the technology here is not new. It's a lot of technology has been here a long time. It was just about piecing together the right pieces in the right way and having the right talent to be able to understand how all these pieces integrate and flow together, right? And if those two things are available, right, this is not hard to do. Now, doing this at scale is a much different story, right? So it's easy for us to build a prototype, but when you do this at scale, there are considerations around safety, manufacturing design, tooling, developer experience, collaboration protocols between suppliers and OEMs, like all of those things. So I don't want to diminish, how hard the problem is to solve.
Yes.
But this didn't take us much time at all.
It's a good example that the tools are helping to have a positive impact.
Absolutely.
That could reduce costs, could reduce time, could make companies that adopt these more competitive.
Absolutely. And if we had a virtualized simulation or digital twin of this, we probably could do it twice as fast even in the next iteration. It's an interesting test. I may challenge the team to think about that.
Hey, Chris, thank you so much for taking some time to walk us through it.
Pleasure to be here.
And thank you for joining us today.
That's the end of our episode for today. If you'd like more information on the topics or our guests, please check out blackberry.com/podcast. Get in, the Software Defined Vehicle podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts, and don't forget to subscribe to keep up to date with our latest episodes. Thanks for joining us.